What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you my 2023 Big Ten Conference tier rankings heading into the 2023 college football season. A couple days ago, I gave you the SEC Conference tier rankings, and then yesterday I gave you the ACC Conference tier rankings. Now we're on the Big Ten, and like I said, we're going to do this for every single Power 5 conference. Tomorrow we're going to do the Big 12. Today we're doing the Big 10, tomorrow is the Big 12, and then of course the Pac-12 will be the next one, and then we'll end things out there with the tier rankings. And these tier rankings, again, are going to be based off of, these tiers are going to be based off of, teams from last year, how good they were, and of course, heading into 2023, how good they will be. So, in the Big Ten, again, these tiers will be based off the tier number one. There'll be 4 different tiers. Tier number 1 is going to be based off of, top contenders in the Big Ten. Second tier will be based off of dark horse contenders. Third tier will be decent teams. And then 4 tiers will be the worst teams of the Big Ten, perhaps heading into 2023. So let's get started here with my Big Ten tier rankings here for the 2023 college football season. We'll start with tier number 1. I think you got 3 teams here in the Big Ten. You got Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. All 3 of these teams here, I think, are the top contenders in the Big Ten. They were definitely the top contenders last year. They definitely, proved me that they are in that tier number 1 conversation. I think, out of the 3 teams here, Michigan is the most talented team in this tier. Besides Ohio State, I think they're really more talented than Michigan, but don't sleep on Penn State. Penn State was a really big surprise team from last year. They were definitely a tier number 3 team for me. I kind of just expected them to be decent last year, but now they are in this tier 1 conversation. I probably would put them in that tier number 2 category to be a dark horse contender, but I think they are definitely one of those top contenders that can really get up there to the Big Ten championship. But all 3 of these teams will be in my tier 1 category. All the 3 of these teams are in the Big Ten East. I kind of expect them to be really, to run the table this year in the Big Ten East. But all 3 of these teams are in the same division. Penn State's got to go through Michigan and Ohio State to win the East, and then that's the same thing for the other 2 teams with Ohio State and Michigan. So these are my tier 1 teams, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State for the Big Ten. Let's now go to tier number 2. These are teams that are going to be dark horse contenders. In tier number 2, I got 4 teams. I got Michigan State, Maryland, Iowa, and Purdue. Michigan State, I know they were a 5-7 team from last year. They were a really bad team, but I think they definitely still belong in this dark horse conversation. I'm kind of high on this Michigan State team. I kind of expect them to be a lot better heading into 2023. Maryland, I think they're going to be a really big dark horse contender in the Big Ten this season. They should probably be in that tier number 3 category because they are, a decent team. But I think Maryland's definitely going to be a tier number 2 team this year. I think they're definitely going to be a dark horse contender in the Big Ten. And they got Iowa and Purdue. It's really going to be hard to tell what the Big Ten West is going to look like. That division's going to be wide open this year, but definitely Iowa and Purdue are definitely dark horse contenders in the Big Ten. Maybe it's a run for the playoff, but I think both of these teams are definitely tier number 2 contenders, even though they're in the Big Ten West. They're right behind Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State. They're both in different divisions, but these are my tier number 2 teams. 4 teams here in the second tier. You got Michigan State, Maryland, Iowa, and Purdue. These are going to be dark horse contenders in the Big Ten. Let's now go to tier number 3, where teams are going to be decent this year. And tier number 3 is pretty loaded. You got Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Nebraska. I think Minnesota is going to be a pretty decent team this year. I don't think they're going to be a Big Ten West contender perhaps, or maybe like a Big Ten championship contender perhaps. Wisconsin, I think they'll be a decent team this year. A lot of people are getting them hyped. They probably should be in tier number 2 to be a dark horse contender, but let's be honest. I don't really know how the Big Ten West is going to go this year. It's going to be definitely a wide open division, and they got Illinois here. They're definitely going to be a decent team like they were from last year. And then you got Indiana here. Indiana was a bad team last year. They should probably be in tier number 4, but I do think this Indiana team's going to really turn things around after a really bad season. I think they're going to be quite decent this season. I think they'll also compete in the Big Ten, against those hard opponents. But I think Indiana definitely is not going to be in that Big Ten championship conversation. They're not really even close to that conversation. You got Nebraska here. I know Nebraska was another team that was bad. They're kind of similar to Indiana, though. They'll compete compete in the Big Ten, West, and obviously against their Big Ten East opponents. I mean, Nebraska and Indiana are both, teams that just really had bad seasons, but I think these are both teams that can really turn things around and be decent teams in 2023. But all these teams right here you're seeing here in tier number 3, these are all my decent teams that I could see being decent in the Big Ten in 2023. We now go to the last tier. It's tier number 4. These are teams that I'm not really high on, and I really don't expect them to be all that good this year. But we got 2 of them, and that's Rutgers and Northwestern. Rutgers, definitely probably one of the worst teams in the Big Ten East, but they're not one of the worst teams in the Big Ten from last year. It was definitely Northwestern from last year. They definitely finished, dead last in the Big Ten. I do kind of expect Northwestern to be really good this year, but we just don't know what they're going to look like. We don't know how good this team is going to be after a 1-11 season last year. Both of these teams will play in the first game of the season as well. And I think that's the reason why they belong in tier number 4 on this list. I mean, Rutgers is pretty easy, but Northwestern, I did not expect them to put him here on the tier number 4 category. I mean, it just really is crazy how Northwestern finished last year going 1-11. But those are my tier 4 teams. I just don't expect these teams to be all that good. Maybe they compete in the Big Ten, but I just don't expect them to have high expectations in 2023. But those are my Big Ten tier rankings for 2023. Let me guys know what you think about these tier rankings. And again, who do you think can see being a top contender in the Big Ten in that tier number 1? Who do you think will be a dark horse contender? And then who you think will be a decent team this year or also have a bad season in 2023? Let me go down in the comments below and stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.